Hey everybody, it is Sunday morning and we've had a few days of letting the angelfish and the gourami be in the tank together, and that little interaction right there was encouraging. And it's also encouraging to see the angelfish out and up in the front of the tank. I just came in the room, and normally whenever I'm around like this, it tends to shy its way back towards the back of the tank and hide. There, it's making its way back there now. So I came in the room and I got the light turned on here. I normally don't turn the downward facing floodlight on until later in the evening, but for the purposes of shooting this video, I wanted to get the tank nice and brightly lit. And when I did so, it didn't freak out the angelfish. So that's good news. It's letting me know that if you watch my first video about this, where I revealed the angelfish in this tank, the angelfish was spending a lot of its time kind of where it is now, just sort of hiding in the back, but it was even further tucked away and really hiding back there, not really wanting to be seen. So I'm hoping that as time goes on, the fish will become more and more comfortable in the tank, and we will get to see more and more of it. However, the point of this video is going to be just kind of an update on this tank in general. I shot a video the other day where I showed you all the leak. Well, I didn't show you the leak because I have no idea where the leak is coming from, but I showed you the leaking, dripping water coming out of the back of it. And I got a bunch of questions and suggestions and comments, and I want to address a few of them and just sort of talk about what's going on in a generalized sort of way. First of all, when I built this, I know I did a very poor job. I don't really know how to explain my process of how I got started, but it originally was going to be a very small waterfall. It was going to be something that actually fit over this tank and was only going to be about a foot or two high and maybe not even quite as wide as the tank. But as I got to tinkering and building and trying new ideas, it expanded and got bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually I had something that was much, much larger than this. And then that, of course, was too large, so I wound up scaling it all down, and I cut that piece down by about a third, and what is left of it is now what you see as my waterfall. So it was sort of hit or miss to begin with. I didn't really know how to build it when I started. I started tinkering with different techniques and methods, and it's just a little mishmash of everything. If I were to do it again, which I probably will be doing, we'll get to that in a moment, I would do it very differently. And that's kind of the point. This whole entire thing was only just sort of an experiment. I never really thought it would get up and working as well as it has. It was just kind of something to do. It started out as an afternoon project and wound up becoming a months-long quest to get this thing to actually function. And I had leaks that I had to find, and before I even got it up and running. And so it's been quite an interesting journey. But it's always been temporary. It's always been something that I knew was going to simply be fun to play with. It was, that's how I do most of the stuff around my fish room. When I set up a fish tank, with rare exception, I don't really think about that tank being etched in stone. That tank is there to look that way now, and when I want it to look something different later, I can make it look different, And so this tank was always intended to just be a fun project, just to see if I could pull it off. I've always wanted to do a waterfall type setup like this, and now that I've done it, I got some really good ideas about how to do it better. Unfortunately, when I built this one, I built it all in one piece, and I built it in situ. In other words, I built it right where you see it now. So I had to have the windows open and the fan on, and the house stunk with all the different solvents of me, softening the silicone rubber and spraying all the expandable spray foam. This thing's probably got 50 cans of expandable foam in it. And, that's something even as bad as I stunk the house up, and that was with the fans on and the windows open and everything. So this is not something I can do in the wintertime. The way I'm going to do it, if I redo it, is going to be with fiberglass and epoxy resin, and we're going to do it right. It will be waterproof, it will be root proof, because that's what I think the problem is here. I think the roots are actually growing through this soft rubber. This is just really, really soft silicone rubber that's, that thick over expandable foam. It's just this stuff. You know, you can just, there's no way you're telling me that roots can't just grow right through that. You can just tear it apart with your fingers. So that's probably where I'm getting my leaks, is the roots from some of these different plants have finally probably found little cracks to wedge into, and now have grown through the rubber sealant and are allowing water just to weep into that foam. And then what happens is it just makes its way down through the foam and eventually just sort of weeps out the bottom down here, and I get this just sort of dripping that comes off the bottom of the wood. The tank itself is perfectly intact. A few people commented about replacing the tank, and the tank is just fine. There's nothing wrong with the tank. And in fact, I was hoping, and I even said that I was hoping that the water itself would sort of seal itself up. And this container here has been collecting water since yesterday evening, and it's only got that much in it. And this bucket is where it's dripping a little more fully into it, and you can see the dripping has slowed down considerably in this bucket as well. So this is now the third time I've had a leak on this tank, and in both other situations what happened was the leak just went away after a few days. This is by far the worst leak I've had, but it's already, after about 3 days, beginning to stop leaking, or at least it's not leaking nearly as much. So what I think happens is, either if it's roots that grow through, then as that root continues to grow and expand, it basically seals the hole that it created, or it's just simply the crud and growth and stuff that develops in the aquarium, in the same way your filter eventually gets clogged up and no more water can flow through your filters. These little tiny pinholes that are allowing water to drip through them eventually just get clogged up with crud and they stop leaking. And that's what I'm expecting to happen with this. And we're almost done. We've still got, you know, the leaks are still happening and it is still dripping down there, but not much, and not so much that it's that much of an issue. Maybe once a day or once every other day I'll have to get back there and drain those containers. So here's the deal. If this is going to be temporary, and it's already lasted a lot longer than I thought it was going to last, it's just too late in the year. You know, we're days away from it being December, and I'm just not about to start doing something like this outside. It's just, you know, it's the wrong time of year. So I need to wait till next spring before I redo any of this. So what I'm hoping is that I can have all of this still up and running, and we can enjoy it over the winter, and I can let some of these plants grow back in. I am still dealing with aphids in there again, and you can see the plants are looking all rough. It's never really recovered since I got in there and did that huge plant trimming, and that's actually when I started getting my leak, is when I did that huge plant trimming. So again, I think it's associated with the plant roots more so than anything else. So if I can get this through the winter into next spring, then we can tear it down and we can start building something else, and we can, you know, do the whole process, and it can, you know, it can be my summer project or my spring project or whatever. If we can't get it to go through the whole winter, if I find out that it's just leaking too bad, or, you know, the whole thing starts to become waterlogged, or who knows, whatever. If I can't get it to go through the whole winter, all I have to do is tear down the waterfall part of it. And instead of having to pump the water all the way up to the top here and then have it waterfall down, I can just put a filter. I can just hang a filter on this tank, and it'll sort of be odd that I've got this 40-gallon fish tank sitting in the middle of the floor. But all of that can just be removed. That's just freestanding on a wooden frame. I could actually just lift that up and walk the whole thing backwards away from the tank. It's not connected to that fish tank at all. So that might be what winds up happening. I may have to tear that down before we're ready to rebuild it, which would mean for the rest of the winter, you know, until we get to the nice weather again, we would just simply have an open top fish tank here in the middle of the room with no waterfall behind it. So that wouldn't be too bad. It just wouldn't be ideal. But I think we'll be all right. I think with the way that the leaking is beginning to slow down at this point, it's going to do what it's done every other time, and that is that it's simply going to clog itself up, and that'll be that. Now, that's not to say that 2 weeks from now, a month from now, whenever, I'm not going to develop another leak, but you know, we're now on the third one, and if we can get this one to just sort of dry itself up, then I don't see why on the next one that wouldn't be the same situation, as long as I've always got, you know, trays and buckets and stuff back there, so that if it ever does start leaking, it drips into them rather than onto my floor, then I should be okay. So make sure you're subscribed. That was an update here on my waterfall tank and a few thoughts on that, but I will be doing an around the world update here, maybe not today, but very soon. So if you're subscribed, you won't miss that or anything else, and I'll go over a lot more details of what's going on here in the fish room. So thanks for watching this one. Make sure you're subscribed. Don't forget, this one here is my waterfall tank, and I will see you real soon on the next one.